As we know, the human body, which is something we all have, breathes oxygen in through the mouth that is needed for specific functions in the body. You can measure oxygen saturation in the blood, and since there's something called hyperbaric therapy and other kinds of therapies that have to do with oxygen, I assume that research has been made that investigates oxygen levels in the body. Now I'm wondering, has research been made that investigate which geoclimatic atmospheric conditions would be optimal in relation to the human functionality in the body? Now there's a lot of talk about decreasing CO2 emissions into the atmosphere, and there are certain atmospheric conditions that are indispensable but not unchangeable. We know that since people are talking about the ozone layer becoming less thinner. I don't know if that's the right word. And we want to decrease CO2 emissions. So we know that it's not unchangeable, but that kind of research would be make sense to be under these climate change times, because when there was not any talk about climate change, you wouldn't be thinking, I think, about the atmosphere being changeable. In that connection, I am thinking about my speed of light graph and the human body, and which conditions would be optimal for the bodily functions when it comes to atmosphere, when it comes to air pressure, when it comes to magnetic, the magnetism that creates the orbits, of the various objects, the planets, moons, and a rotation around the center, which in this solar system, of course, is the sun. Are there conditions atmospherically, air pressure-wise, and magnetically, because we know that the blood contains iron, which has magnetic properties, that would be more suitable for the human body when it comes to the functions, and thereby the lifespans of human beings. I don't know if everybody knows that most things in not great but huge amounts are poisonous. I'm not sure how many tomatoes you have to eat each day for them to be poisonous for the body. Or I'm not sure about water or fruits and vegetables that mostly contain water. That might not be the same the case with those fruits and vegetables. But most things are in huge amounts poisonous for the body, which also makes me think about the atmosphere and the levels of different elements in the atmosphere, or the spheres of the atmosphere, which I don't know how much research has been made about that in relation to the human body, because it is medical science and it is geography and maybe also astronomy. Another thing about Earth is that as we have evolved, you might call it, or you might call it the opposite. People have lost their senses. People don't seem to understand where boundaries are to be drawn when it comes to how much you are allowed to interfere with other people's lives, and thereby the levels of freedom, which or in that connection I am thinking about all the different objects in the sky, ISS or other space stations, and other objects that might be spying on governments, armies, or private persons, and affect the living conditions. We don't know what that information is used for, but psychologically and according to laws, privacy and freedom. Some elderly people talk about how weather affects the body, the bones, they have headaches or things like that, because of full moon, high or low air pressure, which a doctor argues on YouTube is actually, according to medical scientific research, true that it can affect the body. Aristotle talks about how elderly people, their skin looks dry, and there's a resemblance to dead people. I know that's a very harsh statement, and he talks about moist in the body. I know it's a long time ago, but there's a lot of truth to it. Also, when he talks about fish, but with him not agreeing on some other researchers at the time, or wise people, I don't know what they called it back then, who believed that fish got too much oxygen on ground, that the level of oxygen in the water was at a lower level, which we now know is true, that fish have to expel, no, that's not the right word, yeah, maybe it is, some of the oxygen. So that might also be a human condition in relation to the atmosphere of Earth. It might not be the optimal atmospheric conditions or the optimal climate. Now I know the climate is different in different places on Earth, but altogether the atmospheric conditions might not be optimal for the functions of the human body. There might be other places out there in the universe, and since Earth is the most habitable planet in the solar system, I'm not talking about the solar system, but there might be other galaxies, solar systems in the universe that are more suitable and more in relation or in accordance to what the optimal conditions of the atmospheres for in relation to the human body. Now I forgot where I started, but I think I think it's to understand, and also the magnetism of the planets and moons, suns in other solar systems. There might be another other magnetic conditions or that fit better with the level of iron in the human blood. Sometimes, now back to oxygen, sometimes we hear about children who have not gotten enough oxygen for the brain during the mother giving birth to the child. And what does that cause in the brain of the infant? I think I could say in most cases, but it's probably always that it causes some kind of brain damage, I think. And what does that mean? That oxygen is important for the brain's functionality. So what about CO2 emissions and climate change? How does that affect the oxygen levels and thereby the brain's functionality or decrease of proper functionality? Does it affect the brain, and has there been made any research in that relation to that? Do we know anything about, probably doctors know what oxygen levels are needed for the brain's optimal functionality, and in order for brain damage not to occur. So I hope that doctors, people who know about or who have a scientific background within biology, geography, astronomy, it's a really good theme. It's not just a theme, it's as far as I know, it's real. So it's a good connection in which to make research that is that integrates different scientific fields, implements within that research because there must be some connection between the climate change, the CO2 emission, the atmospheric condition, and the levels of the different elements and how they affect the body. So, according to laws and to the most beneficial conditions for human beings psychologically, then freedom is very valued, and it's illegal to interfere with people's privacy, and that's also the case when it comes to objects in space, especially in Denmark, because it is a part of the law that was made by, I don't remember if it was King Frederik VII or Christian, I don't remember which one, and Grevin Danner, who was an ordinary, so-called, woman who married a king, and they made that law. So it's against the Danish laws to interfere with people's private life, also family lives, and human rights as well. But furthermore, Earth has become very small. Earth, this globe, let's just call it this globe we live on, has become very small, with much disagreement, war, not only wars that include physical weapons, but also biological weapons, and energy weapons, apart from word game weapons against people, which makes this Earth, this globe, a very split globe. So, according to laws and to the most beneficial conditions for human beings psychologically, then freedom is very valued, and it's illegal to interfere with people's privacy, and that's also the case when it comes to objects in space, especially in Denmark, because it is a part of the law that was made by, I don't remember if it was King Frederik VII or Christian, I don't remember which one, and Grevin Danner, who was an ordinary, so-called, woman who married a king, and they made that law. So it's against the Danish laws to interfere with people's private life, also family lives, and human rights as well. But furthermore, Earth has become very small. Earth, this globe, let's just call it this globe we live on, has become very small, with much disagreement, war, not only wars that include physical weapons, but also biological weapons, um, and energy weapons, apart from word game weapons against people, which makes this Earth, this globe, a very split globe. And what is gravity? Okay, maybe I haven't looked enough into it to know what gravity is. I'm thinking about gravity as a void that you, if you enter the, penetrate, you don't have to penetrate, but get through the atmosphere of Earth, and you are not wearing a parachute or inside an airplane or something like that, or a spacecraft, then you will drop down on the ground. But it's not a pull. That's what some people say. You're not pulled down, because if you were, you would be lying down on the floor, struggling to get up constantly, and that's not the case. So there must be maybe different levels of, there is different levels of gravity. Because we know on the moon, if they really landed on the moon, they could walk on the moon, but still they could jump higher than on Earth. So maybe there's also a gravitational pull or level or optimal levels of gravity, but that's has to do with the atmosphere and magnetism, because the cores are magnetic. The blood contains iron, which is magnetic. So maybe it is kind of a pull. I don't know if that's how it functions. I don't know, but maybe when we have wrinkles when we get older, is that because of the gravitational pull? Or, and what about weathered faces? That has to do with climate, wind, and maybe salt. We know that people who fishermen have very weathered faces. Now, I've read Aristotle, and that's how the way Aristotle thinks. So thank you for Aristotle's literature and research so many years ago, which helped me think about this because of the thoughts on fish, water, and oxygen, and being on the ground.